Have you ever wondered, how do I balance being myself while I'm promoting or marketing what it is that I do versus actually having to promote those things that I do or those services that I provide? Or have you even thought, well, you know what, could I actually change my personal brand? Can I adapt it? Like, when is that okay? When would that be necessary? I bring on two guests that are going to come and join me on a big chinwag about this topic. I think you're going to enjoy it.
You're listening to The Brand Compass, conversations to navigate your way to building a brand fit for purpose and poised for success. Here's your host, 𝗘𝗣𝗜𝗦𝗢𝗡.
Hello there, my friend, and we are back for another installment, and thank you for choosing to listen to us today. This is the place where we meet in the halls and chat about all the ways in which your personal brand meets the humans you serve. I'm Shelley, your host on this conversational journey, and this episode is a first for me because I have two guests on today. However, they have been on the show before, so they are not new to you. I'll introduce them in a sec, but what I wanted to do is just paint a bit of a picture of what we are going to do today. So this is going to be a little bit like chatting around the campfire type of situation, as my guest and I are going to chew the fat on a couple of issues in our space at the moment that we wanted to bring you along for the ride. There's so much noise in the world right now, and it's becoming increasingly important for us to really pull our collective socks up and bring clarity and simplicity back into our lives. And for the purposes of this show, I mean this in the context of how you show up in the world and how you express who you are, what you are about, and most importantly, where you are really clear about what it is that you want for yourself and the problems that you're here to solve. Okay, so let's bring my conversational partners in for today, and a big welcome back to Mark, Franklin and Imogen Jones, my work family. We work together inside our agency business, 𝗘𝗣𝗜𝗦𝗢𝗘, on personal brand consultancy and creating podcast shows for subject matter experts. Welcome, guys.
Hey.
Yay.
Hello.
Anybody watching? We've got jazz hands going on. Right. So normally when we get together, usually in person, we do some Zooms as well, but we like to shoot the breeze, right, around our proverbial campfire. And recently we decided, why the heck don't we just record some of those conversations so we can bring our listeners in, right, to be like flies on the walls and hear these inner workings of our brain. So for today, just for the listeners, we're going to tackle a couple of things that come up frequently for people when it comes to personal brand, and also how this kind of physically plays out in the real world. So to kick us off, what I'm going to do is I've thought about a couple of things that came up for me when I was on a panel for an event recently. And the first thing was, how do you actually navigate between being yourself and self-promoting? Emma, I don't know if you want to kick us off and tell me what you think when you hear that.
Well, I don't think there is really a distinction. We are who we are. So our personal brand is who we are and how we present ourselves to everybody. Mm-hmm. So when we are talking about our personal brand and self-promoting, it's one and the same. It's finding what makes us comfortable or what we're comfortable demonstrating to people.
Yeah, that's true. Mark, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, Emo's absolutely right. It is one and the same thing. I know none of us are fans of the phrase personal brand.
Yeah.
I think the way we kind of get into it when we're sat around the table is, it's just that version of you that's showing up and how you make people feel and how they remember you and so on and so forth. And in terms of self-promotion, I think the more clarity you have around the who am I and what is the difference I want to make and how am I going to share that magical genius, the less you get caught up in the, oh, but I need to do the icky selling thing. And it just becomes like an extension of your conversation.
It does. Emma, so when you said, oh, it's, we're one and the same, there's no distinction. I think for some people they really struggle, don't they? Because they feel icky trying to sell. Yeah. So there's probably a little bit, you can dig down a bit more into that, can't you?
Yeah, so it's translating, it's trying to be helpful. Understanding what we do is actually really beneficial to our clients. And the self-promotion doesn't have to be, look, buy from me. It's I do these great things. These are the ways I do them. If you're going to find that useful, I'd love for you to get in touch with me. So it's more inviting a connection and inviting the conversation to you rather than, hey, check me out, look at me,
Buy me,
aren't I
click me.
fantastic?
Not sure about click me, but click the link below. It's going down south very quick.
It can feel, well, I struggle with that myself. I hate the and contact me and asking people, just get in touch. Reply to me. I'd love to hear your thoughts, even if the selling is demonstrating what you do in letting people see that and having those two-way conversations on social media and places like that. People can see that you're helpful and then contact you to work with you.
Yeah, and I think sometimes we have to help people out, right? Because we know what we do quite deeply as professionals, but it's really hard sometimes for our audience to realize that we're what they need. So you kind of have to drip feed them understanding where they are in their needs journey, and then where you kind of drop in as a service provider. And then one of their questions is going to be, well, then how can I work with you? Or what does that look like? So you almost have to do some of that content, don't you think, Mark?
Totally. Yeah. And again, I was in a sort of Zoom call last week, I think it was, chatting to someone who really is like an expert in their field. They're incredibly good at what they do, but they were struggling with this. I don't like to put my hand up and sort of ask the question. And there is that risk that we get too passive, and we wait for those people to find us and think, oh yeah, that this is the right person, this is the right time. We do have to be a little bit more forward. And in that conversation from last week, we're sort of saying to this person, in a hopefully helpful and not confrontational way, it's like, you are, sorry, I'm going to be rude, you are bloody good at what you do. Yeah. How dare you not share that with the world and give people the opportunity to enjoy your genius?
You are the cataclysm, I think, as a service professional or a subject matter expert. You have this cataclysmic ability to instill change in someone, and you have no idea what that change is going to be. So you're holding yourself back is just selfish.
Like you were saying, Shelley, it's like giving people that opportunity to know. We see plenty of content of people selling themselves, and in a lovely way, trying to emulate that. What we need to find is a way that sits comfortably with us. So with the personal brand side of things as well, what we're happy to share, kind of putting those guardrails around things that might make us feel uncomfortable. But then, so allowing people to come into us, seeing our expertise as well as who we are as a person. Nice. Yes. No, agree with all of that. I think the only thing I'd probably add is when people are potentially thinking about how do I balance, like you said, Emma, I don't think there's a difference between you being you and then you promoting yourself, because you are that one same human. But I think what we've got to remember is the ratio by which, or the frequency by which we think we're saying these icky salesy things, right? One, be comfortable with doing it in a way, like you say, that feels good to us, and that we're not being selfish and we're sharing ourselves with the world and letting people know how they work with us. But if we also got to think about the manner in which we're doing that. So if you're thinking in terms of visibility platforms, say, for example, an online channel like LinkedIn, what is too much? Like, how are you balancing that? But it's not just about that. It's about worrying about how many people are actually going to be seeing that content. So it's not just about you sharing that. So say you only do 7 posts a month on LinkedIn, that's maybe 2-ish posts a week. And you decide, well, actually, I'm only going to do one of those posts as a potentially salesy post. Okay, so that's 1 post a month. Okay, but how many people are actually seeing that? Like, in reality, if you've got 1,500 contacts on LinkedIn, they're not all seeing that. If you're lucky, 1 to 2% of that are seeing that. And then was it good enough that they actually saw it enough to tap on it and look at it and actually digest it? So we've got to evaluate. Was it the right person as well?
Exactly.
Because it might be valuable content to a lot of people, but they might not be in the right place at the right time to be buying that service.
So you've almost got to be repetitive as well.
Yeah, they might need to see that in 6 months' time or 6 weeks' time. So you need to be more frequent as well.
So we got to face up to the reality of, we think what too much looks like, but actually that is different for everyone, isn't it?
Well, we are the only person who sees all of our
I
content.
know.
So if you're posting, I don't know, various people say, was it 70 to 30 or 80 to 20%, of your posts? So 80% story, 20% maybe is the sort of self-promotion and sales, whatever percentage works for you. But you're seeing all of that 20%. So if that's 2 out of 10 posts every fortnight, to you that might feel like a lot, but as you say, Shelley, particularly with the way that the algorithm is constantly changing, a tiny proportion of people are seeing that. So don't get yourself all het up around that, am I being too salesy too often?
Yeah.
And I think for me as well, even if I have seen somebody duplicate, and it could be like 6 months later, I might have gone, oh, felt like I've read that before, but I haven't gone, well, that's outrageous. How dare they share that again?
It's just lazy social media. Oh, I'm disgusted.
But you might be more ready to listen then, and you might be in a slightly different place, right? Yeah, no, definitely. And I think we're talking about the frequency, and we need to watch out for the algorithm, because what's the reality of people actually seeing what you post? I think what we're saying is find a ratio that's comfortable for you, whatever that is, but ramp that up over time, because you're probably starting on a really conservative level. Like you go, oh, I'll do 1 in 7 posts will be salesy. Maybe over time that needs to be 2 to 3. You know what I mean? So that you can actually get a bit closer. And you might increase your frequency as well. So you might do 10 posts, or it might be a post a day or whatever it is. Or actually, if you're doing a talk, depending on the guidelines of what you're given as a brief, you've got to make sure that there's at some point, somewhere in there's some kind of self-promotion. Not blatant, but you're not there for charity. And yes, if you are being paid, great. But it's another visibility opportunity, but you've got a rapt audience in front of you. Hey?
So yeah, self-promotion is obviously trying to elicit a sale, but it's also demonstrating you are that expert for them to contact.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be explicitly buy me now. It's understand that I am great at this. I know what I'm talking about. And if you need somebody like this, think of me.
Yeah. What do you think about that, Mark? You're more a speaker than we are.
Yeah, I mean, it probably comes down a little bit to the language we use and the stories we tell ourselves. So things like, I mean, I've already said we don't like personal brand as a phrase. Self-promotion as a phrase as well as I think a little bit icky, because it does make us think, oh, this is turning everything back in on ourselves. It's very selfish. It's self-centered. It's
very
all
British.
About me. Very British, yes. And I can't possibly make it all about me, because, as a speaker or someone, we're all in the service industry.
Yeah.
We're here to serve. We want to help others. We want to kind of, lift the world up with sort of the magic that hopefully we can sort of put out there. So it could just be as simple as find a better way to label your sales posts and self-promotion posts as, something that you feel more comfortable with. This is, again, it's me offering myself out to help others become better at whatever it is that they do. That might sit more comfortably with, those of us who don't like the big S word.
But if you don't like the S word, just, I think of it more like educating people more on how you solve problems.
Totally. Yeah, exactly that. Yeah.
So there was another question that came up at this panel, which I think kind of links to this, because I think people also get a little bit worried over time. Like, they feel like if they do like strategy, people hate the word strategy and they think it's a very fixed, formulaic thing. But actually, in reality, we know it's not. So this other question that came up was, can a personal brand change or adapt? And when and why might this happen? So, Mark, should we start with you this time? What do you think?
Yeah, I was thinking about this one. It's interesting in so much as the more connected you are to your personal brand, which is born out of your own story, your own beliefs, your own values, which could be very deep and sort of mean the world to you, and therefore are unlikely to kind of waver or change, unless there's some sort of great sort of trauma or something happens which really does throw you. But the goals within your business or your story or what it is that you want to achieve, that might change. And so I'm not entirely convinced that your personal brand shifts. But again, the kind of language within your story could, you might adjust that to attract a different audience or promote a different service or celebrate something that is now a little bit more important to you than it was yesterday.
Emma, what do you think?
I've
got a few things blooming in my head now.
I've got a few things. I think, I was going to say, through life, we change quite a lot. So that could be just from, I don't know, going through your teenage to your 20s, maybe getting a family or changing in life situations. So I think we do change A little bit. As in, so our personal brand does evolve with us. What we care about deeply will change. Especially, I don't have kids myself, but I know people, the way they think.
Hey, you have a
what they're
dog. I think
planned
that
for.
counts.
It does. But the way you, like, you know, holidays for me before was always getting on a plane. For me now, it's not so much. So whilst my personal brand and what I intrinsically believe, I don't think has changed, how I've outwardly demonstrated that, and the things I enjoy have changed through life. So whilst the values and what sits deep inside, I don't think has changed so much, I do think the way I have portrayed myself and the way I have been, because I think I was probably a lot more mouthy and opinionated when I was younger. And as I have learnt more, I realise I don't know as much as I thought I did when I was younger. So I'm now more reserved and I'm a bit more mindful when I'm talking to people. So I think your personal brand can change, and how you position yourself and put yourself out there can flex and evolve over time.
Flex and evolve,
change,
yes.
Rather than change, I say evolve.
Evolve. I think so, because I think it's very much, I think I like your analogy there of moving from teenager, into young adults, into adult, because ultimately the person themselves is not changing. And if we liken that to what you were picking up on there, Mark, is ultimately the reason why you're here and what drives you, those intrinsic drivers, and that kind of future that you're aiming for, that doesn't really change. How you get there might evolve and mature over time. And with your metaphor of going from teenager to young adult to adult, if you think about your personal brand as the clothes you're wearing and how you're walking and how you're speaking and how you hold yourself, that will mature and stylistically change over time. And like you say, Mark, the words that you use, when we were talking about that other point before, the words you use, the phrases you use. And I think maybe when people ask this question, it might be more about what if their point of view changes?
Yeah.
Does that affect their personal brand? I'll throw that to you.
So give us an example in terms of point of view versus...
Well, similar to what
beliefs or
like
values.
Emma said now, right? So when you're young and flighty, highly opinionated, you go, this is definitely the way things are, because you don't know what you don't know. What happens when you get older, or like you said, a trauma happens, a major incident, a big lifestyle change happens, and you think, oh my goodness, actually, my point of view is not that anymore. It's this.
It can be from external drivers as well. You think as a child, you're learning from your family, your close friends and your teachers. As you get older, you hopefully widen your circle. You meet people from work and you meet people from clubs, and then you get different points of view, and you think, oh, actually what I thought was correct is I've got questions now. Like, is it so black and white? Or I thought this before, but I'd never seen it through that lens. So...
I suppose the issue could maybe be, and I'm trying to think of like, oh God, I hate this word, the influencers that sell products and things. Say, for example, you had an influencer where they got a massive audience. They obviously make their money based on their audience, and they've been just selling, promoting products in order to make the revenue from their deals that they make with their brands. But say one of those influencers then all of a sudden realize the impact that those products are potentially having on the audience, then they almost start to grow a conscience. I think in that case, you almost have a hard stop and re-communicate yourself to the world, don't you think? Because actually your personal brand probably has to shift, because maybe potentially your values and your principles have changed. What do you think? Can't think of a good example. So, because I don't really follow a lot of influence.
Yeah, well, no, I'm trying to sort of pin the conversation around an example, like you say. For me, it really kind of drills into the essence of what is our definition of personal brand. Because in many ways, I agree with everything you're saying in terms of you might have someone who, through their broadcasts and content and fan base, has demonstrated a passion for eco-friendly products and sustainability and sort of green and climate and so on and so forth, and then discovers that several of the products they've been promoting do not serve that. Depending on their beliefs and values that have sat behind the business that they've built and the persona they've created, I don't know whether they're changing, because I don't know, other than what they're putting out, which can be incredibly sort of, facile and false and just noise to. Are they driven by the money? Are they driven by the money? Are they driven by the audience? Or are they driven by genuine values and beliefs? And if it's the latter, then I'm not entirely sure that their personal brand changes if you're happy to sit with the definition of personal brand being the who you genuinely are and the who that you want to put out there into the world. It's just the messaging that pivots and the explanations, as opposed to the. Perhaps,
I think what you're talking about there is some influencers are putting on a mask. They're putting on a pantomime of who they are, a persona of who they are. It's not necessarily who they
really are.
Who they
now we're getting into ethical personal branding.
I was going to say, but that I think in the way that we're talking about it and the way we work with people, it's trying to take away those masks so that they feel comfortable being themselves and they're happy to put themselves out there. Yeah.
I suppose, so a name has popped into my head, is someone that we talked about sort of in the kind of run up to this, in terms of the, who do we think demonstrates a phenomenal personal brand?
Yeah.
And I'm a massive Joe Wicks fan. You knew I was going
yes,
there. But in everything he does and wherever he shows up, there is that consistency. Even when he's on sort of television doing the big shows with all the celebrities and the A-listers and so on, he's still him. And you can almost see the kind of sort of not the imposter syndrome, but the kind of the hesitation: do I deserve to be here? Am I good enough? Because he's
nice,
still
humble
that
way.
He's still that lovely, genuine, authentic guy who set out to do some good and has now got a platform in which he can do an awful lot more good. But that purpose has been consistent throughout, and he has not been swayed by huge opportunities and massive offers of money and deals and various things that for him would pull against that very deep personal driver.
But then do you not think that's why he's got so good at what he does and why we believe in him and why we trust on him, him even? Because if he sit there and went and took any deal that came to him, would be like, oh, I thought he stood for this, and actually that doesn't demonstrate that.
Yeah, which coming back to sort of the original question, again, makes me think that it isn't necessarily the personal brand that changes if your personal brand is deeply rooted in those consistent values and beliefs and and so on.
It wouldn't have to adapt to that degree if it was done right in the first place.
Yeah. Thank you. That's exactly what I've been trying to say for 10 minutes.
Okay, there we go. Done. Nailed.
Yes, well done, Shelley.
No, but it's true. And I think also what I like about Joe is a little bit of the crisis comms. He remembers about two-way dialogue all the time. So if he's been misquoted or something he said that's been taken out of context and then it's been clickbaited across the net, he's very quick to get on video and talk to his audience, And we know there's been the flare-ups with ADHD and nutritionists and all this kind of stuff going on as well. But he's very quick to explain his position, which I think is good. And I think because he works so hard, I think it's important if you have a personal brand that if you ever feel that kind of unease or disjointedness that's happening online, you've got to address it really quickly and you can't ignore it as well. So I think that bleeds into... when we do, just for the listeners, when we do this personal branding work, we try and talk to our clients a lot about the audience as having these two brains, right? An emotional limbic brain and this logical, you can get very bored hearing me say this because we do this so much. There's this logical cortex brain, right? And ultimately that limbic brain is the brain that goes, you are the one for me. This is the thing I want to do. It's that gut instinctual first impression decision where your instincts are, I like this person. But everybody's got this logical fact checker brain. And basically that fact checker brain is going to go, okay, all right, limbic brain, that's very cute, but let's just check the facts here. And they tries to find evidence to support the fact that you like this person. So I think if you do too many things that don't align with who you've said you are, what you stand for, what's important to you. If you do anything that kind of rocks the boat and goes completely against that, it starts to not only mess with the logic brain, who now can't find the evidence to support the reason why this person's chosen to like you, but also your limbic brain just starts to go into overdrive, going, oh, self-doubt. Why did I choose this person? I don't feel right now. There's a lot of, unease around that decision making. So I think we've got to just make sure again that we're feeding those two brains all the time. And if you do one to upset the other, you've got to balance. Does that make sense? Am I rambling now?
No, totally. Yeah, completely agree.
Oh man, so I think that was a fairly good. I think I'll probably round up now and see if there's anything else that you guys wanted to add to either of those 2 points that we talked about today. And then what I'd quite like to do is get some feedback from our listeners to see if they enjoyed our little campfire chat and if they had questions that they'd quite like us to chew on. Is there anything that you are thinking about now that you think you'd quite like to add from either of you? No? No, Mark?
No,
I think we did a fairly good job, didn't we?
Yeah. The three of us, we can go on forever about this.
We can. We're being very conservative today.
We are, yeah. Because again, it's something that drives the three of us individually, as well as as the team, in terms of, like you say, what we want to do on behalf of the people that we serve. But yeah, it comes back to who are you really? Who are you really? What do you stand for? And once you're connected to that, that's probably your personal brand. Start there.
Yeah. And Emma, do you want to link it to the podcasting side? Because I know we're really passionate about the whole area of voice and giving people platforms through podcast shows. So do you want to link through why that personal brand bit is actually so important to do alongside a podcast show if you do want to start a podcast show?
It works really well together, because obviously creating any kind of content, when it's written or doing long form content like podcasting, if you're really connected to who you are, you then don't have to second guess what you're saying or how you're saying it. It will just be part of you. So if you do this work up front, you won't feel like you're having to put on a show every time you're putting on an episode. Nice. Because you'll just be talking from who you are, from your values and your strengths, and translating what you do to your audiences. So it is, I think, with the people we work with as well, having done that work, it's helped them then make the planning and how they're going to go forward with it a lot easier.
Also sets the tone, doesn't it? I feel like if a podcast show, okay, besides the crazy South African who's talking now, if you actually have thought through everything and you're actually quite comfortable being yourself, it comes through, I think, when you're on your show. Because if you haven't done this personal branding work, you might have a lot of that fear around, well, who am I to have the show? Who am I to be talking on this subject? What do I want? Why should anybody listen to me? You kind of nip those things in the bud when you do a personal branding strategy, isn't it? Because it kind of reinforces, well, actually, I'm quite a genius in this bit, and why shouldn't I share myself? Because actually I'm good at these things, because we do that bit of work as well, don't we?
We owe it to people as well. Being experts, we owe them the opportunity to learn what we know, because I feel when we're close to it, we think, oh gosh, this is so simple though, how couldn't everybody know this? But they don't, because they're experts in their thing and we're experts in our thing.
You're so good, Imogen. Thanks again.
And I'm done. Thank you.
And I'm done. I'm out of here. Gee, please. That's excellent. Thanks, Mark and Imogen. It's always a great pleasure to have you on. I'm obviously seeing you guys next week. If our listeners have enjoyed this conversation, maybe we can do a little more of these campfire chats. Thanks a lot, guys. And that's it for today, folks. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm hoping that what you got from today's episode is that by doing this deep personal brand strategy work, it will not only give you clarity and comfort in your day-to-day marketing and communicating of yourself, but it will also give you the space to grow and mature over time in a way that's comfortable for you. So this is a truly direction-giving work that leads everything else that you spend your time, your money, and your energy on. With our fast-paced world being driven by the acceleration of artificial intelligence and technology, being you has never been as important as it is now. I was listening to Dan Priestley not too long ago, and he shared that many more SMEs are going to be reducing in size to the point that the average organizational size in 10 years' time is going to be a micro business. That means under 10 people. In fact, he even went further to say there'll be under 5 people in the average operation. So a small team with maybe a multi-talented strategic head of people at the top, and then AI basically helping out on everything else. And just to marry that with you, if that didn't concern you already, is according to the CIPD's latest Future of Work report, 86% of us will have to reinvent our jobs in the next 5 years. I'll let that just sink in there. All right. In order to tackle the world that's coming, you are really going to have to simplify how you talk to people and be really clear on what you want, what you stand for, why you're different, and then dig in, like big time, to find more ways to communicate and express that. If you want any help doing that and you like what you've heard today, do get in touch and we would love to work with you. It all starts with a free consultation and getting to know each other first. You can DM me on LinkedIn or Instagram. I'm the only Shelley Rosland out there, but I'll pop all the contact details in the show notes for you as well. Remember to support the show by following or subscribing on your favorite podcast app, giving us a review, or just simply telling one new friend about the show. So who do you know that could do with hearing the conversation we had today? Until next time, my friend, stay strong, believe you have value, and make good brand decisions.
Thank you for listening to The Brand Compass. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to share it with your entrepreneurial friends and help them make good brand decisions. Until next time, let's keep the conversation going at 𝗘𝗣𝗜𝗦𝗢𝗡.com.